We're first going to loosen up the bolts. We haven't started lifting anything up yet. We haven't jacked it up yet or anything. We're going to go ahead and just loosen up the bolts with our torque wrench. And if we run into any troubles from here, that means that we're going to have to, like I did with one of the bolts, it was stripped. So I had to go through a process with that, taking the cap off and then going through there. I can do another video to show you how I did that later on. Right behind your front wheel, you're going to find a place to put your jack. Your jack has a groove. It's made with a jack. If it doesn't already come in, and it'll go right into a groove. You can't miss it. Basically fits perfectly for your jack. And then you just lift it up a little bit, put it in place, and then you're going to start getting it into it. Start jacking it up. So now we got to a point where we jacked up the car. We take our turner, I guess lack of better words, just put it to the side so you won't run into it. You got your torque wrench. I got to the last nut. Basically, like we said before, you're loosening up the bolts before you lift up the car, so it won't be difficult for you to loosen up the bolts when you are taking the wheel off. So it should just come easy as that, right off. After removing the wheel, we're getting to a place where we can finally see where the brake holder is. This is where we're gonna remove 2 bolts in the back. We're gonna get our 13mm wrench and go ahead and get to the back of the brakes and start going turning it to the right side, and be able to just take that bolt right out. And if it gives you a little trouble, you can grab a hammer and just give it a little tap so that it can give you a little extra support to be able to take that bolt right off. There's 2 of those in the back. Right here. And then this should be able to just pop right off. Now before we do that, we're gonna grab so we got to a place where we took the bolts off. We're gonna try to take this out. Since we can't pull it out by hand, we're gonna have to tap it up a little bit with the hammer. Right there on these, where it's holding the brake. Where it's holding the brake pad. Just give it a little tap so it can slide right out. And then you have something to hold the brake holder right in the back. I put a little basket or a little bucket, whatever you need to do, so that it won't dangle from the brake line. So now we expose the brakes. Now you can just basically slide it right out of that groove. Shouldn't take too much for it to come out by hand. There it is. It's pretty worn out, as you see. And there's one in the back as well. You're gonna remember how it looks and how it goes. So I would keep it separated. Just if it's your first time, it'll keep you organized. And then when you put the new brake on, you'll see how the new brake looks. It has a little slight difference between the front and the back of the brake. So you'll be able to distinguish that. So, real important part, you're going to grab the brake lubrication. Just a little bit goes a long way. You can just put it on your finger. You're going to put it on everything that contacts the brake. So the back of the brake, go ahead and get that really nice and greased up. And then the other brake as well. A pea size is too much. Actually, we'll do a half a pea size. And then get everything that you can think of. I'll show you. I put it on both sides of the brakes. I'll do the grooves where it goes into where it holds it. So there's 4 sides, 1, 2, and then 3. And 4. You have to get you can actually feel it, but since I've been doing this a little bit, you could just grab your flashlight and get back in there and just see what you're actually doing. And then the one last place to grease up is the contact. Got to a place where we're taking off the brakes. Now we're exposing the brake rack where the brakes slide in. And we have the new brakes right here. Important part is grab the brake lubrication, start applying it to the back of the brake pad. There's a little place where it has, you see where the old one is, that used to be lubricated as well. I would go ahead and do this other side as well. Anything that the brake contact where the grooves where it slides in, grease those up front and back, and even the brake where the brake line is. This compresses the brakes to make it stop right here where the O-ring or wherever, right here. Just grease that up really nicely, and this front part as well. And then after we do that, we're gonna go ahead and grab our, we're gonna compress this back into place so that the brake, since the new brakes are newer and they're thicker than the old ones, we're gonna have to push this one back so that it can actually fit into the groove. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let it rest, or however you want to do it. I would go ahead and let it rest and then grab a hold of it and then compress it down so that the brake fluid would go back into the reservoir. Let's see if I can let you see this right here. You start tightening it up and it'll start going back into place. See how that's going back right here? It's going in there. That means that that brake fluid is going back into the line. And that should be right. That's what you should be looking at right there. That should be enough. That is enough right there. See how that's flush right there? That brake will be, it'll be able to cover both sides. Grab a hold of the two ends of the brakes, be able to hold it back in place. Make sure lubricate it. You know, this is the stuff that makes it stop squeaking. Lubricate it nicely, and then go ahead and fit the groove in there. Fit right in there. Same thing with the back. Fits right in, and then you're ready to go ahead and slip that right in there. This holder has springs on the nuts. Just push that down so that it extends when it gets the brake wears out a little bit more, so that now you're ready to put your bolts back in. I would lubricate those as well just in case. Make it easier for yourself next time when you do this. You'll be able to have all the bolts lubricated and come out easier. that nice and tight in there. We can give it a little tap, just to make sure. You're good to go. So we gotten the brake holder back on. We've gotten the bolts nice and tight. We've gotten it all lubricated. One of the things I want to stress is that make sure that all the grooves, every single area that touches the brake pads, will be lubricated nicely, as much as you possibly can, so that it can be covered completely, so that you won't get any squeaking noises later on in the future. Next thing you're going to do is pump up the brakes. I'm gonna put the tire back on, put the bolts back on, put the car back down from the jack, and then I'm gonna push the brake, pump the brakes a little bit, so that it can send the brake fluid back into it, so you can start grabbing the hold of you'll start feeling the brakes functioning once again. And my name is Ricky. Appreciate you watching this video. Please subscribe.